Okay, so I did a very simple Merry Christmas card, but I thought I'd try to learn something new in the process as well. So I figured I'd try to make the fonts scalable. So if we change the margin here to, let's say, 56, you can see that the text automatically scales to the viewport size, the text view size. And that goes as well if we change the resolution, like we try on a pixel to XL instead. It automatically changes to the new resolution as well. So at first I did this with the normal layout, the relative layout, with a couple of nested linear layouts as well, with weights on it. And I won't go into how I did that because it was quite ugly code-wise, and nesting weighted linear layouts is not recommendable because, well, the checks it has to make for the weights grows exponentially the more nesting you do. So it's bad coding. I learned because Android Studio told me so. And instead I thought I'd try with constraints and ConstraintLayout, and it was a blessing. I really liked it. It's a lot better than relative layout, and I will have a hard time going back if I ever have to, because you can do so much more with constraints and so much easier than with the other doing it the other way. So I'm going to go through a bit what the differences are, but not too much. I'm going to show you what I did. So with constraints, you simply tell the text view how it is going to relate to other things, almost like childs or siblings that we learned about earlier, but not quite, because if you watch here in my text view, my Merry Xmas text view, on each side you have a constraint, and that is simply a connection to another side. And you can also tell, if we look here, you can also tell with that constraint how it relates. So if we go into design here, I can show you. Now we pick our text there, and you can see here we have our different constraints, and instead of having it with match constraints, I'm going to make it into wrap content or a fixed size. With fixed size I have to change the layout, but I really like that you can use match constraints, because then you can have it just take up the space it needs. For some reason it drops the margin end whenever I do it in the design mode. Let's just fix that so it looks like it's supposed to. So now with that setting, it drags out as far as it can to the sides, but it still respects the padding and the margins. And then you can think, what about the bottom? But here comes some of the magic with constraint layouts. You can have guidelines, and you can tell the guidelines how it is, where it's supposed to be in percentage as well. So here we have a guideline that is 20% down, and I have connected the bottom of my text view to this constraint, to this guideline. And here we have another guideline which is 90% down, and yet another guideline here that is 50% vertically in, or horizontally in. So it's a vertical guideline, and I have connected this text box to this one as well as to this guideline. And doing this, I can change the text views with a percentage, so it scales independently of what resolution I have. That was what I was going for. I also added something else. I added shadows to the text, because it's hard to see white text on this background, but it doesn't show in the design mode here. Yeah, but if I have the final product here, I can show you that if you check up here, that you can see the shadows outlining, so it's a lot easier to see what's going on. But going back to Android Studio, I can show you how I did all this. So first I started with, like, we were told to put in the image as the background with match parent, and also I was told by Android Studio to add a content description, and I did this in a string. And I did use strings with my text as well. And the strings you can find in values and strings XML, and it's simply a bunch of strings that you name, so you can get it later on. And the value of doing this is that you can also use these later when you translate your app, so you can call the same name, but you have in another file you have translations of all the strings to another language. And I use center crop to make it fit, because it's not the right size, and also I wanted to be able to use it on different resolutions as well. So after that I use this one, and I have margins on top as well as the sides, but not at the bottom. The bottom is connected to the 20% guideline, so if I would move the guideline, I would also move the bottom of the text view. And all my views I try to code in the same way. I start with the placement, or the ID, and then the placement. How do I place the text view? Then the content is supposed to be where did it go? Ah, there. That's not right, it should be up here. Ah. After I placed it, I used the content, and after the content I style the content. So placement, content, and style. The font, I use gravity to make it center inside the text view. I use the color text shadow for shadow color, and that is also in the values color XML. I can show you here a bunch of names for colors and the appropriate hex code for them, so I don't have to worry about having hex code inside my XML file and figure out what they mean, even though it's quite easy to learn once you have done it 100 times. Bold, the max size of the text, so even if I would use a lot larger or a totally different resolution, it won't go over 256 SP, and I think that's larger than I would ever use, and it won't go under 12 SP, and it'll only do this in steps of 2 SP, so it's 12, 14, 16 up to 256. Outer size is in uniform type. I only know one other, is none. I don't know the difference. I haven't learned that yet. Here's how the constraints are connected. So to parent sides and top, and to guideline, so bottom to the top of the guideline. And this missing prefix is because when I try to run the code, the Android Studio complains that it can't use the app scheme. But with I tell it to ignore the missing prefix, and it works fine, and it works fine on the phone as well. Down here we have the same thing. I have a string, and I have the shadows and the font and placement of it. Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, these are the shadows. Where is there? Here we have the shadows. Shadow X and Y, that's how much up and to the side it goes, -8, -8. If I would put 8, 8, it would go down to the right instead. Shadow radius is how much it spreads. And here's the text color. Well, now I'm babbling on. And if we look at this, you can see here that I have connected it to two guidelines. First the guideline in the middle, and then the guideline just above it. And the same thing goes here, that if I would change these, I would change how big this text would be, and it would still scale when if I change the resolution. And this is how the guideline looks. It's just an ID with 1 dp. Height, wrap content, I think you have wrap content on both, but I'm not sure if it's any difference. This is just how I saw it in an example when I learned how to do it. You tell if you want it vertical, like this one in the middle, or if you want it horizontal like the other ones. And you use percentage, like 0.5 is 50%, it's in the middle, 0.9 90% down, or 0.2 20% down. So when I did this in relative layout, I had to use empty views instead of these guidelines to and then to stop. I nested it in linear layouts, so I put an empty view that was 50% large, and this could then take up the other 50%. And I had a linear layout here with the text taking up a certain percentage, then I had an empty view, and then I had this other linear layout down here taking up a certain percentage as well. And as you can hear, that's not optimal. It's a lot more code, it's a lot more nesting, making it more complex. This is a flat code. Everything is just laid out flat in front of you, so it's a lot easier to follow and easier to see what's done. So yeah, that's what I did. I hope you learned something, because I learned a lot when I did it, and it was quite fun. I would recommend you to try to make your card into a constraint as well, just to see how it's done. Good luck, happy coding.